Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming. My name is Jack Smith, and I'm the acting U.S. Attorney here in the Middle District of Tennessee. At the podium with me are Steve Gerardo, Special Agent in charge of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Mark Gwynn, Director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, David Rybicki, Deputy Assistant Attorney General, David Jaffe, Chief of the Organized Crime and Gang Section of the Department of Justice, Lieutenant Sean Avery of the Clarksville Police Department, Sheriff Mike Fitzhugh of the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Ricky Troop of the Gallatin Police Department, and Sergeant Kevin Worrell of the Kentucky State Police. I'd also like to introduce Assistant U.S. Attorney Ben Schrader and Department of Justice Trial Attorney Ivana Nizic of the Organized Crime and Gang Section, who will be prosecuting this case together. Let me just start by thanking the law enforcement officers who conducted this investigation and helped us bring this case. Cases of this nature take a great deal of time, effort, and expertise, and we take great care to ensure that we've thoroughly investigated a matter before we ask a grand jury to vote an indictment. I believe that too often, the folks who do the real work, the law enforcement professionals who spend countless nights away from their families doing dangerous work to make our families and our communities safe, those folks are not properly recognized for the sacrifice and their commitment to seek justice. I'd like to say I'm extremely proud to work shoulder to shoulder with the men and women who put this case together. I believe the quality of our law enforcement community here in the Middle District of Tennessee is unsurpassed in the nation, and that this case is yet another example of that. I know you will be provided or have been provided with a copy of the indictment, so I'll not go into that in detail as it contains the details of the allegations in this case. Let me just announce the charges and then briefly summarize the case for you. After that, some of the other folks on the stage here will make a few comments, and then we'll be happy to take questions. Unfortunately, we will not be able to comment on anything that is not contained in the indictment. Yesterday, a federal grand jury sitting here in Nashville returned a 40-count indictment against 11 members of the Gangster Disciples gang, including key members of the gang leadership here in our area. These defendants were charged with a variety of crimes, including racketeering conspiracy, murder in aid of racketeering, assault in aid of racketeering, murder of a witness, narcotics trafficking, and weapons offenses. The defendants charged in this indictment who served in leadership positions in the Gangster Disciples gang include Marcus Darden, who as regent for this area was the highest-ranking Gangster Disciple in Middle Tennessee, Maurice Banks, who served as an enforcer and chief of security for the gang, Brandon Hardison, who served as a member of the security team for the gang, Lamar Warfield, who served for a period of time as the chief of security, Lance Lucas, who also served for a period of time as the chief of security, DeCarlos Tiddington, who served as an enforcer for the gang and also supplied the Gangster Disciples with firearms, Lawrence Mitchell, who served as a chief of security for a deck of the gang in Greenwood, Tennessee, Lorenzo Brown, who served as an area coordinator for the gang in Murfreesboro, and Rex Whitlock, a major drug supplier for the gang from 2006 to 2008. The charges in this case encompass conduct dating back over a decade. And as you can see from the serious charges voted by the grand jury, the plague that the Gangster Disciples have wrought in our community over this time has been devastating. Over the last 3 years, my office, working with our law enforcement officers, has previously charged 11 other Gangster Disciples with various narcotics and weapons-related offenses. In bringing the current charges, we have sought to bring to justice those who've previously eluded it while playing a central role in the gang violence in Murfreesboro and the Clarksville communities. And I can tell you that we are not done. This prosecution is another step in what will be a sustained and unrelenting effort to dismantle the Gangster Disciples here in Tennessee. We know that too well gangs are a serious problem for communities across this country. They bring with them the trafficking of drugs, from cocaine to crack cocaine to prescription pills, and they also bring with them violence. Violence against rival gangs, violence against innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire, and violence against witnesses, innocent members of our community, murdered because they witnessed crimes committed by a gang member. The gangster disciples, the folks charged in this case, caused all these harms and more. In addition to over a decade of narcotics trafficking, the indictment also charges both the murder of a witness as well as multiple counts charging the attempted murder and assault of innocent bystanders struck down by bullets unleashed by members of this gang. Crimes like this create a climate where families cannot let their children outside to play without fear that they will succumb to a stray bullet. Crimes like these place good communities of law-abiding citizens, under siege. It is our hope that this indictment, and others like it to come in the future, will be a first step in making these communities safer for the families who live there. That's a summary of the allegations contained in the indictment. As I mentioned before, the indictment contains a more detailed description of the illegal activities of this gang and its members. I would like to add that the indictment is only an allegation, that the defendants are presumed innocent, and that the burden is on us to prove these charges beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. We stand ready and willing to do so. Finally, I want to reemphasize that this important case was made possible only as a result of our long-standing partnerships with our federal and local law enforcement community, a partnership for which I am grateful, not only as the U.S. Attorney in this district, but as a citizen who lives in this district with a family. So thank you for your help and for your service to this community in bringing this case. Director Gwynn?
This indictment announced today is an example of how critical it is to have a combined work and support of our partner agencies in conducting investigations such as this one. This type of cooperation is important to ensure the protection of the citizens of Tennessee from violent individuals. Gang members who commit such violent acts as alleged here have no place in our communities, and we will continue to work together to bring such bad actors to justice. We are grateful for the relationships we have with these other law enforcement agencies, and will continue to participate with them in efforts to keep our citizens safe. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank all of our state and federal partners for a job well done. ATF and its partners work diligently to protect the public from these senseless acts of violence. We will bring all our resources we have to bear to disrupt and dismantle these violent street gangs that plague our citizens. ATF and our law enforcement partners made an impact to this epidemic, which is spanning across the country. The positive relationships with the community have had an effect in reducing violent crime in the neighborhoods which the criminal element preys. As we continue to protect the public from the worst of the worst, we want to engage with the community and ask them to support us by reporting illegal activity. And we encourage you all to go through the ATF Reported Phone app to help us keep the community safe. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone assembled here today, and especially Acting U.S. Attorney Smith. Today's indictment is a testament to the diligence and professionalism of the federal prosecutors here in Nashville and of their federal, state, and local law enforcement partners here with us today. This case reflects a sustained, coordinated team effort to bring the gangster disciples and their associates to justice for serious acts of violence and drug trafficking since at least 2007. Violent crime threatens the safety and security of communities in Middle Tennessee and across our nation, which is why Attorney General Sessions has made fighting violent crime a top priority for this Department of Justice. This is especially important given the disturbing uptick we are seeing in murder and other serious violent crimes in many cities across our country. As you know, part of the Department of Justice's mission is the fight against gang violence. And under the Trump administration, this Department of Justice, there will be no safe quarter for gangs and their associates. We will prosecute gang members who commit crimes by using all of our resources at our disposal. We will dismantle and eradicate their networks, starve their revenue sources, and deplete their ranks. The Attorney General has made clear that we will not concede a single city block or street corner to their vicious tactics. We will fight to ensure that all Americans can feel safe in their homes and neighborhoods. That's why today's indictment, charging 11 members and associates of the Gangster Disciples with murder, racketeering crimes, and narcotics trafficking offenses, is so significant. I want to emphasize that today's indictment represents years of hard work by the federal, state, and local law enforcement professionals assembled here today in bringing the Gangster Disciples to justice. So on behalf of the Department of Justice's Organized Crime and Gang Section and the Criminal Division, I'd like to thank the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Nashville, as well as our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners who made today's announcement possible. Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
Where did they primarily operate, and what kind of drugs are we talking about here?
Sure. The gang, as charged in the indictment, the folks charged here, operated primarily in Clarksville and Murfreesboro, and their drug trafficking ranged, as set forth in the indictment, to a number of types of drugs, including crack cocaine, prescription pills, marijuana, things of that nature.
Did they commit crimes in other parts of Middle Tennessee and Kentucky?
I can't speak to anything that's not in the indictment. The indictment charges crimes that were committed here in the Middle District of Tennessee.
It sounds like it was a pretty big takedown. Talk about what it took to take 11 members down of this gang.
Well, I think that is just another example of what a few of us talked about recently. You cannot accomplish anything without cooperation, coordination, and hard work from a number of people. And the end result of this case today is no different than what it took to kind of build this case over the course of years. Our law enforcement partners work together, they plan things out, and they've done just a tremendous job on this case from the very beginning up till today.
One of the officials described these members as the worst of the worst. Describe why it was so important to get them off the streets.
Well, I think the indictment on this case speaks to that. This is a group that trafficked narcotics in these communities for over a decade. That has, as you'll see in the indictment, a pretty strict hierarchy, strict rules. These are the sort of gangs that they pull young kids into these gangs, take their lives off track. They commit crimes. They make it so families who want to raise their children in these communities feel they can't because, one, their child could become a victim of violence as a bystander. Two, their child could get pulled into the gangs. And I think, as we set forth here, and as I mentioned previously, the people we charge today were leadership of these gangs. So they're the people causing this problem in the community. And so I think taking them out of the equation should, we hope, have an immediate positive impact on these communities.
And you mentioned that this has been a 10-year investigation starting in 2007. Can you talk about how and why it takes a lot of time to gather the information necessary to make this kind of takedown happen, and also the effect of these members being among leadership? What does that do to Gangster Disciples in Middle Tennessee and across the state?
Sure. So these investigations are painstaking. One of the reasons I think that federal court is a great forum for these investigations is because we have the resources to conduct the long-term investigations necessary and use all the tools of both our federal and local partners to conduct these cases. As you can see from the crimes charged in the indictment, these are dangerous people willing to commit violent crimes if it's in their interest. And to do an investigation of people like that, we have to be very careful to make sure we don't endanger witnesses or endanger members of law enforcement. And so those investigations can take time. This, as I said before, is part of a larger effort to eradicate the Gangster Disciples and other gangs in our community. And as I said before, we've charged numerous members of this gang before. I think today is a special moment in that we are now able to bring serious charges against the gang leadership. And the hope is that will cripple the gang here, but I'm not under any illusions that there's not more work to do going forward.
How, you said it cripples the gang, does this mean the end of Gangster Disciples here in the Middle Tennessee area, or are there many more to take their place?
I'm not here to say that this ends the Gangster Disciples. I think this is a step in that process. Our experience has been that we need to bring these cases and make the public aware that we're bringing them. And now we need to prove the allegations we made in court and make sure these people are convicted and receive appropriate sentences. And I think I don't think it's helpful to talk in terms of that it's over or not over. We are fighting a fight that I think the community needs us to fight for them, and I think today was a huge step in that right direction.
Is it a difficult fight?
Of course, of course. These gangs, as you can see in the indictment, this is a gang that has plagued this community for over a decade. When you have a problem that intransigent, it's not something you can solve overnight, and it's not something you cannot solve without just incredible commitment and expertise by the folks standing up here with me. I think you can see the range of law enforcement involved here, all levels, to combat a problem that is has this negative effect on a community and is this long-standing, requires this sort of cooperation to have a positive effect. And that's why I'm very happy that we were able to bring these charges today, and I look forward to working with everybody here going forward on this case and other cases related to this.
How did law enforcement work together on this case? I mean, you know, how a lot of information sharing, of course, and I guess undercover officers in different agencies, but can you talk a little bit about how you guys kind of cooperated?
Sure. I can't get into specific investigative techniques, but I can say that all the different agencies here have different resources and different things they could bring to the table. There are some law enforcement that have worked on this case that have just, you know, long-standing experience with this gang and know great specifics about how they operate. Others brought tremendous resources to the problem. It's also important to be able to protect witnesses in a case like this, and so everyone had a share in the work here, and everyone should deserve a share in the credit of this great outcome today.
You talked about the negative impact on the community. Have you gotten a chance to speak with people who live there? Are they breathing a sigh of relief tonight? Are they sleeping a little easier at night?
We have not, because again, this indictment was just returned yesterday. But our office has made it a point to do community outreach, not only to speak to people to see if there's been a positive effect, but it's important for our office, and I know my partners up here feel the same. We want to hear from community members about what the problems are in their community, because folks who live in a place that's under siege of gang violence, they're the ones who can best tell us where we should be working, what we should be looking at, and how we can best use our resources to make a difference in their community. I can tell you, it was just a couple weeks ago, Mr. Gerardo and Director Gwynn with me at a community forum where we had that very sort of discussion here in Nashville, kind of hearing from the community what were the things they wanted us to focus on, what could we do to make their communities better. And again, that's not a one-off thing, that's not just a day of a takedown of a case like this, that's an ongoing dialogue that all of us are going to have, and we'll continue to have it with the folks in Clarksville and Murfreesboro.
And can you say how this network kind of became centered with the leadership in Clarksville and Murfreesboro, and also kind of how that relates to the rest of the state, if any, in their connection to leadership?
Sure. Well, as alleged in the indictment, this is a gang that is a national gang. It's started in Chicago with a man named Larry Hoover, who is in prison, but I think the understanding is that he is still the head of the gang. And it's a gang that is not just a problem in Tennessee, but across the country. There have been major cases against this gang in other parts of the South, I believe in Atlanta, and also in other parts of Tennessee. And as alleged in the indictment, this gang is connected nationally, both to Chicago and to other chapters in other parts of the state. And so this case that we're bringing today focuses on what happened here in Nashville and crimes, or I'm sorry, in the Middle District of Tennessee, and crimes that occurred here. But make no mistake, this is a gang that has been a problem for communities across the country.